Lots of cool stuff's happening. I don't know if you saw that Google jumped in the Portal game through HouseCanary. I thought that was interesting. I was
Well,
like,
that is interesting. That wasn't on our list, but that's interesting because in 2010, for April Fool's joke, I created a slide that had the Google landing page, and underneath it said, I'll send it to you, list your
yes,
home for
yes, send it to me.
free. And then I made up this story about how Google was going to get into the real estate business. Now, we know Google has made a couple of attempts. As a matter of fact, back in 2008, I think I remember I was chairman of the Business Information and Technology Forum at NAR, and I had Justin McCarthy from Google and who else did I have? Oh, from Zillow, uh,
Okay.
um, Barton.
Oh,
Rich
Rich
Barton.
Barton.
Yeah. I had both of them on a panel, and I was the panel
Okay.
moderator, and I had both of them, and it was still kind of early, and it was very interesting conversation because Google was looking at it then. And my
Yeah.
position has always been Google's got all those eyeballs and all that blank real estate. All that's there is a query box. And if somebody wanted to change the industry overnight, they could create a listing. They could say, list your home for free.
Yeah.
People would click on that, do you think? Just out of curiosity.
Dude, come
And
on.
so, yeah. So when I saw
Everybody.
that article, that pretty interesting. And while they failed in the past is no guarantee of the future, right?
Hey, Saul, do you remember how many agents notified us saying, is that for true? Is that an April Fool's joke or is that really
Oh,
true?
wow.
Yeah, it was just like, the older one where they said, oh, Mars is, we've landed on Mars or Mars is attacking us. And it drove all the citizens in the US crazy. It was just
Well,
like that.
so a good April Fool's joke has got some element of truth in it,
Right.
Yeah.
right? And so, yeah, people, so, and because we had a lot of credibility, people believed us,
Of
right?
course.
But I always would start out by saying, well, here it is, April 1st again.
And now it's real kind of.
Now it's real.
Cool. Where's Amazon? That's all I want to know. Where's Amazon?
That's a good question.
Uh,
Yeah.
all right, guys. You sent me an awesome list of a breakdown of where we're at. You also sent me the anatomy of a real estate lawsuit, which I'll post up. It's in the Data Advocate. It's a great site for all of this information. But first, let's start off with the DOJ versus RealPage. Can you guys brief me on that?
Well, briefly, the lawsuit's been going on for a year or two, and finally they've reached a point where they're going to come up with what we call a consent decree. Now we're familiar with consent decrees, right? We had them
Oh
back
yeah.
in 2008 for residential. Well, this is now in commercial, where RealPage was using software in which they would assemble non-public data, all right, non-public data, and then distribute it among some of their clients, and they would use this rental data, non-public information, to the DOJ said set prices, rental prices, and fix them, and that's why costs were so high.
So,
So
so,
they really came heavily against the commercial real estate marketplace.
so RealPage is property management, is a publicly traded property management software company.
Okay.
And so just think of if you're a big publicly traded software company, all of the giant companies that use your software. And in your management software probably are like rental amounts and expiration dates of leases because it's the property managers who are using this software. And when they're making these entries into the software, all of that information is aggregated by the property management software company. Now, it's not information that's available to the world, but if you were managing apartment buildings and the company that you are paying money to utilize their property management software, what if they said, hey, we can do a rental market survey for you to tell you what units like yours are renting for. You'd probably want access to that. You'd
Yeah.
probably pay for access to that. And so here, these properties, big property management software companies, they've got this database where nobody else has the information, right down to the unit as to
Hmm.
what people are charging, when it's due, the length of the leases, all that information. And with the right type of maybe AI, you could go in and create models for, well, your building's this old. We know this about your building, and you should be charging this much. And so people could then all, based on that, people could all start charging the same or an amount that's relevant to their type of unit, kind of like price fixing,
It
but
is, yeah. Yeah.
undercover, right?
Totally, man. That's like, hey guys, we found the sweet spot. Let's start charging this. It's almost like,
Yeah. What should
uh,
I rent my property for? Click here and it come. Where did it get
dude.
that information? It got it from all of the people using the software.
Yeah. It's almost like antitrust. It's like they all got together and they set a price,
That's
right?
it. That's it. And so John's saying now they're even looking at the commercial side because again, RealPage is probably they're global. They're a big company. I mean, John and I we sold two companies to Yardi back in 2010, 2011, and then we worked at
Hmm.
Yardi for 4 years. Yardi, a big giant international property management software company. They had huge customers. Their customer base was to us was astounding, right? Like the Port of New York, right? Just giant entities would use their software. The US government to manage military housing, low income housing. They had different types of software and they had lots of customers using it. So, what they were doing, what all these types of companies can do is collect data that then can be utilized. And in some cases, the
Yeah.
government might say that's not a legal use. Now,
Yeah. Well,
You know,
can you
so
wasn't
imagine?
guilty of this. So Yardi wasn't guilty of this. We just learned about it back then and got interested in it because of a similar case at the time.
yeah, I think you remember too when a lot of the work we had there, I think, was suits against RealPage, and all of a sudden they had several of the terms that came up that are discussed in this article we were talking about. Everybody was put on what they call litigation hold. I mean, whenever there's a potential data suit, everything is held, all evidence, emails, databases, everything need to be held, because if you are revealing that information or hiding that information, that can be used to attack you later on. So we're going to find out a lot of the terms that are used these days in the litigation world are very important. ESI is an
Yeah.
important one. Electronically uh, 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 staged information. So all of
Yeah.
that needs to be held, and once your lawsuit starts, uh, you can't change that at all.
So a consent
Oh.
decree, this would be where, and correct me if I'm wrong, John, where the DOJ, which is kind of like the plaintiff, the Department of Justice, they would settle with the defendant, RealPage. They would come to a consent and then the defendant would be held to some standards of behavior for some period of time. John alluded to the 2008 National Association of Realtors Department of Justice consent decree around virtual office websites, which was a 10-year agreement by NAR to allow for certain rules with regard to MLSs that provided
Mm.
virtual office website feeds to brokerage companies and companies that worked for the broker, created the solution for the real estate brokers that wanted to have virtual offices. So it's a consent decree rather than have the DOJ come in and really slap you down and right. They say, okay, well, we'll back off, but you agree to do these things for the
Mhm.
next 10 years.
Yeah. I like that. I think that's a good explanation for it.
So
And dude,
yeah,
yeah,
so we're waiting for that one, but we're also waiting for the status of the current Compass versus Zillow suit, where the status of it is that Compass and went and applied for a preliminary injunction to enjoin Zillow's ban on the property listings from firms that did not comply with the Zillow policy.
yeah,
So the hearings are done on that, and it's sometime this or next week. Great Christmas present for somebody, where the judge is going to come down whether to allow the preliminary injunction, which means Zillow is going to have to accept the listings from Compass private networks, and so that'll be very telling. And
well,
related to that is the one that is just been filed, and that's the one involving Optimal Blue that we talked about earlier.
yeah,
Yeah, and the other one that's related is private listing network, not by a brokerage, but by MLS, Myrid, out of the Chicagoland area, has
yeah.
they just started to receive notices to their subscribers from Zillow saying, "Hey, you, you, we want to give you notice that maybe by January 1st, we're not going to accept your listings anymore
You know that,
because
that's
it's
just
listed on a
crazy to me.
private network." Yep.
So there's like
They're
so many
getting
things.
information from us and then they're telling us what to do.
Well, but there's so much to unpack with these things, right?
I know, but still,
So
it pisses me off.
MRED, so if you go back to coming soon, when that kind of first popped up, because people were withholding their listings from the market. And so coming soon came up that kind of was an NAR rule. And also what was happening is private networks were popping up. So what, and MLSs were looking for solutions that would allow them to compete. So
Yeah,
what MRED did is they came up with their own version of a private listing network. They said, well, instead of putting the
got it.
listings on these private listing net, we'll create a private listing network within our MLS. And so you can, and
It
so
sounds good to me.
yeah, well, that's why Zillow popped up and said, no, that's a private listing network, and
Oh
that's
my
not
God.
really available to consumers and everybody. So it's interesting, and it has like so many of these things, there's a history behind it.
Of
And so
course.
decisions that might have been made at one time based on the context of that time might
Hmm.
not seem to be the right answer in today's context, right?
Yeah. I mean, can they call it the open listing network and be closed? Would that-
Well, yeah, and it kind of runs afoul. See, when they set up this private listing network in MRED, Zillow didn't have this rule.
Oh, yeah, dude, come on. Look, how many times did Zillow tell us we're not going to be a broker? Listen, no, guys, we're serious. No. Why
Yeah.
can't we do the same thing?
Well,
But
Myra took the position that their private listing network was not going to be syndicated to others. It was only going to be used by other subscribers within the MLS,
By agents.
by
yes,
agents. Yeah.
And is that so? Is that the way they got around it? Is that okay?
Well, that was their policy and belief, yeah. But that's being challenged, of course, by Zillow.
Huh.
Zillow's raising all sorts of things like that method kind of is going to assist in discrimination, you know,
Hmm.
of cases, and
That's
that's the
interesting.
essence of the argument now, and that's a case which is in the pre-discovery stage, so we don't have all of the facts, and um, uh,
It's interesting because I'm going like on one hand, I'm like, dude, go Zillow, go. And on the other hand, I'm like, I hate you. What the hell are you doing? Right. And I'm like, now I don't know.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
confused.
So you got to look at what Zillow wants, among other things, is they want all the listings on their site,
Yeah, of course. That's the
right?
power.
And so, yeah, so they want all the listings on their site, which I don't hold that against them. And what MRED has done, based on what they constructed before the Zillow rule, to get all
Yeah.
the listings into the MLS, but they're
Hmm.
not being syndicated. So that means Zillow doesn't get them. Although I would have to think Zillow somehow gets them in a VOW feed, because I don't know how that would
Yep,
necessarily work. Because there's so
that's what
much
I'm
to
thinking.
unpack here, right? But it's just something else for us to watch because the industry is transforming before our eyes, one case at a time.
I agree, man. So I have a question about Zillow because Zillow seems to, a year ago it was NAR, right? This year, 2025 has been the year of Zillow lawsuits. Uh, where do you guys think this ends as far as how Zillow comes out of this? Do you think over the next 2 weeks, John or Saul, the judge says or the courts say, "Hey, Zillow's right," or Compass is right? What are you leaning towards based on what you're seeing?
Well, I'll go first. I'll look at my crystal ball first.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me yours.
And
Just shine it. Shine it.
yeah, yeah, I get it all ready. I think that it doesn't matter. I
Oh,
think that
okay.
Zillow is, they are capable of thinking on their feet, and they have proven it to us numerous times in the past. And so, when confronted with what appears to be an obstacle, this is a company with a lot of smart people and a lot of money, and they're
Yeah.
competing in this area that where a lot of money is in play. And I think that regardless of the way it turns out,
Hmm.
Zillow will adapt.
I agree. I mean, that's what we all agreed on when we first reported on this. We're like, they're going to change their disclosures and it's going to be the same thing.
Well, there was a time when Zillow got their listings directly from ListHub and Point Two when I was the CEO at Point Two, and
Hmm.
we got the listings from the MLSs, and Zillow got them, and the data contract we had was a publishing contract. But then Realtor.com bought ListHub, and Realtor.com bought Point Two, and when that
Mm,
happened, Zillow didn't have access to the listings anymore. So what did Zillow do? They became a broker. You already alluded to this. They became a
yeah, of
broker and they were already buying and selling real estate. So becoming a broker kind of fit into the direction they were taking. But
course.
they then utilized that to access listing information via IDX, Internet Data Exchange, and Virtual Office website data licenses. And so because they became a broker, they had access to the data where they were denied access under their older model, but when the older
Got
model
it.
changed, Zillow changed.
Yeah. So what you're telling me is no matter what happens, Zillow's going to continue to change, and real estate agents are going to continue to complain about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And sellers are probably going to keep saying, "How come my listing's not on Zillow?" When
That
it
happens all
really
the
is
time.
on Zillow, but it's somehow, see, that's what other people, the agent enters their data into the MLS. The MLS then has to transport that data to the third parties. And sometimes when you move data around, the fidelity of the data is reduced, and certain things don't appear that should appear, or they don't appear correctly because it's not perfect science to move your data from the MLS into an entity that provides a transport mechanism to the entity that
Mm,
receives the data and then displays the data. So lots of
yeah,
things can happen in that ecosystem. We deal with it
interesting.
every day.
John, do you think it's the same train of thought with you? Like it doesn't matter what happens, Zillow's going to adjust and keep growing?
I agree with that part. And what they'll also do probably is if they lose on this preliminary injunction, they'll probably involve the appeal process of that particular ruling. So it'll go on for a longer period of time. And so it's amazing when you look at the litigation life cycle about how all the different stages that come into play. And what I found is the most interesting one for us is when the court proceeding gets to the discovery stage. With the
Hmm.
discovery stage, both parties have to produce the evidence that they're going to come up with later on in the trial. So this is where you find all of the juicy material, the inside stuff, where you get to take a look at the documents that have been electronically stored, for example, and suddenly now you can make your own persuasive arguments which way it's going to go. Right now, we're all kind of just conjectures of what we think might happen. But
Yeah.
when you get into the discovery stage, that's when you can actually see the nitty gritty, what's really happening, depositions and interrogatories.
Like the Zillow emails and all that stuff that popped up. That was hilarious.
Yeah,
We're like, we
yeah,
love agents. Not really. No, we hate them.
I love it.
That's so good. So it can get more juicy. That's what you're saying, John.
Yes, yes. And of course, I'm sure that that'll give us some juice to talk about during these update sessions that we have, because some of the stuff is hilarious. When you get into the depositions, and they get Robert Redford being pinned down, to certain things, and and
Yeah.
and ultimately find out what the motivations are for parties. This is the good stuff.
The thing is, guys, we already know the reasoning, right? It's not like we can't see through the veil,
Right, right.
but we have to go through the processes to see what the courts say because that's what we stick with. It's a crazy thing.
Well, you just reminded me. So 2026 is going to be an interesting year from a litigation perspective. And there was another case, I think was in Florida, where a brokerage firm is suing a buyer for reneging on the buyer broker contract. And that used to be forbidden. I mean, people used to say, well, you don't sue your clients because if you sue your clients, you're never going to get any more clients. And so now we have this buyer broker situation. And so I can see where agents and brokers are reluctant if a buyer decides not to honor the contract, even though they are bound to honor the contract legally, where they might somehow figure out a way to try to sneak or get out of it. And then it's how much courage does the broker have to go after the buyer for the commission? But if brokers aren't willing to do that, then the buyer broker contract's not worth the paper it's written on. And so at some point in time, if we expect the industry to move in that direction where people are hold a buyer broker contract with the same importance as a listing agreement, somehow there's going to have to be some accountability. And that's a case in Florida right now. I don't recall the name of the case.
No, and
Mm.
they held there against the brokerage company, and even though they did examine the buyer broker agreement, which had some very broker oriented clauses in them. For example, the holding period. If you had shown them a property and then the agreement expired by its term, but the buyer wound up buying the same property even through somebody else within 6 months later,
Hmm.
the broker said they were still entitled to it. It was very
Really?
anti-consumer. So buyer
Yeah.
broker agreements need to be carefully looked at now to make them a little more client friendly. Is, I think, one of the conclusions some brokerages are using.
Yeah, but
Which
I would
makes
look
sense.
up this new case in Florida because I think
What
that's
was it?
I would start. I can't recall the name. I'll find it and send it to you.
Yeah.
Uh, but
Send it over
it's
to
going
me.
to be one worth watching, I think.
All right. So we got 3 minutes. I want to know, besides what you just said, what should we look out for possibly around the corner for 2026? Anything peeking its ugly head so that,
Yes,
well, what is it? Tell me.
AB 723.
Tell me what AB
AB
723 is.
723 has been made, it was signed by the governor in California on October 10th. It's the law that is now part of the Business and Professions Code, which is where the real estate law is in California. And it says that if you advertise a digitally altered, and if look at what the definition of digitally altered, a digitally altered image, you must also make available by link or by QR code the unaltered image. And so when somebody enters an digitally altered image into the MLS, they must also enter the unaltered image. Then the MLS is going to have to figure out ways to, when the MLS makes that data available to third parties, that the third party knows how to go into the MLS data and say, oh, that's an altered image, and here's the unaltered image, and put them in a position that's compliant with AB 723. So AB 723 California, but what starts in California doesn't die in California typically. So other states are looking at this, and that's if here's a good example of the digitally altered image. You erase the power lines.
Mm. Dude, yeah, I like it a lot. I just looked it up. I might do a video on that one. I totally forgot about that one.
Well, it's a very important one, and we were only given a couple of months, and we've here at the San Diego MLS, we've been spending at least an hour a day, our staff, talking about this, about ways to make Paragon, which is our vendor, to make Paragon compliant with this requirement. So what it required us to do is figure out, when you load an image in our MLS, you have to mark it, and you can, as a digitally altered image, and then you have to load the unaltered one. Then you have to grab the address, the URL, the Uniform Resource Locator of the unaltered one, then paste it into the description section of the altered image. And
Okay.
now within Paragon, we're ready. When we send that data out to third parties, everything's in one spot, altered image, unaltered. Now, but we got to tell the people downstream who receive the data, when you get our data, here's what you look for. And once you've identified an altered image, here's where you look for the unaltered image. And that is going to be a law effective January 1st, 2026. And what about the listings you put up today? Well, if the listings you put up today are still available for sale and being disseminated and out there on the internet, you got to make sure that if there's an altered image, a digitally altered image, there's
Hmm.
the unaltered image. And we're not talking about cropping and certain lighting changes. The law is semi-specific as it defines a digitally altered image. It's really changing the characteristics of the property.
Mm.
But that's a big one, Tristan. And I think
That is a big one, dude.
if people don't comply, what could happen is they could end up being disciplined. This is not like the MLS will fine you. It might, but a bigger fine would come from the Department of Real Estate, or loss of license, possibly, or a
Mm.
lawsuit from a consumer that banked on what they saw in the image, and then what they ended up with was not what they saw in the image, and it can create a lot of problems. So I think that's a
That
big thing for
could.
people. AB 723.
I'm
The
gonna
other
tell
thing that I would look at would be to follow the Optimal Blue class action suit, which is in its early stages now, but it could be having very big consequences in the mortgage tech's antitrust arena.
That is something I'm going to look up because I wasn't aware of that whole thing, man. So thank you for that. Susan says, so if we are compliant with our MLS, once it goes out into the cyberspace, we could possibly be non-compliant. Is that the case?
If the unaltered image and the altered image are not somehow accessible together, you could be. Here's an issue. People say, well, we'll load the altered image and then we'll put all the unaltered image at the end of the carousel. We can have
Yeah.
75 images. What
Mhm.
happens in our MLS? Well, what happens if the vendor who takes the data only takes 10 of the images? Then if you put all the unaltered ones at the end, that solution wouldn't work. And so
No.
we here at our MLS, we've been searching for really a best practice. What's a best practice to make sure if the downstream vendor takes that data, they display it properly? Now, we can also say to the downstream vendor in our license agreement, when you take this data from us, here's what you have to do. You have to make sure the
Hmm.
unaltered image, and we can do that. But there's still no guarantee it's going to end up that way. And who's going to be responsible? The broker and
I
the
mean,
agent. And that's not to say there might not be liability for the vendor downstream, but this is a big deal, more complicated than a lot of people are giving credit to at this point. And I think it's something that people really need to think about.
couldn't we watermark it as soon as it goes
Well,
into?
so yeah, absolutely. So when somebody loads an image into our MLS, if it's altered, you can mark it as digitally altered.
Yeah.
Then you have to go through that, get the URL, paste the URL, and then we send it out to a company. A company takes it from us. It's an MLS router. They take it from us, and they know that because it's marked as digitally altered,
Hmm.
they know it's digitally altered, and we're talking to them now about watermarking them as digitally altered. And so through our MLS, we'll be able to satisfy that requirement. But then we have to tell the vendors downstream, hey, when you get it from us, if it says, if there's watermark and it says digitally altered, know that this is where you find the unaltered image.
I like that. Have a link, direct them into the right place. I like it.
Yeah.
All right, what other question did we have? Can you place before and after image together and create a single file to post? I mean, that could work, but then you can't see it that well, especially on a
Yeah, somebody
phone.
had suggested that to me as well. And it sounds good, but what you'll come up with is different ways to do this. Some might work all the time, some might work part of the time. Actually, I don't think any will work all of the times. You want to get as close to all of the time as you can. And you're right, if you got two images stacked and it's in one media file, then yeah, when somebody pulls it up, they see both of them. I guess that would work, but I think the images would be smaller, wouldn't be as detailed, might not be what sellers expect. I mean, right, a lot to consider.
Yeah, true. All right, guys, until 2 weeks from now, because wait, yeah, after Christmas, we'll see you guys.
We'll be here. Great seeing you.
Thanks, everybody. Have an awesome week.